Welcome to the Pages of Light podcast, your destination for discussions of popular fantasy and science fiction novels from a Christian worldview. My name is Tyler, aka Verum, and with me today, as he was in the past two episodes, Gabriel, aka the Quarantine Quartermaster. He's a good friend of
guys?
mine. Yeah, welcome, Gabe. He's a good friend of mine from the local church that we attend, and yeah, it's good to be back with another episode.
I'm excited to be here. I've been listening to this book nonstop for like a month, and I've thought about it a good amount, and it's such a fun read. So I'm excited to start the discussion.
Yeah, well, I didn't actually say what we were reading, so we are going to be reading or talking about Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. Follow up from Warbreaker, which is what we did the past two episodes. So if you are interested in hearing that discussion, make sure you go back and check out those episodes as well. So today we're going to be doing specifically just the characters. So there's Raiden, Sarene, and Hrathen. Those are the main three, and then we might discuss some of the other side characters that interact with those main three as well. Make sure you follow Pages of Light on all sorts of social channels. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Rumble, MeWe. I'm on Goodreads, all sorts of things. So you can follow us over there. You can also head over to our website, pagesoflight.com. And you can check out our blog there. We have a lot of our videos up there as well, and links to the podcast and stuff. So check all of that stuff out. And yeah, we're just going to jump into this first episode here, looking at Elantris. And we're just going to give you our general thoughts on just the book as a whole. Gabe, you want to kick us off with that?
All right. So imagine that you wake up one morning and your skin has gone dark and black splotches are appearing all over your body. And then you're kidnapped and you're dumped in a city where other people like you live. And so, but this place is like a living hell. So if you like say stub your toe, and you know how much that hurts when you like hit a corner and you weren't expecting it, and you're like, ah.
Or
step
on a Lego piece.
Oh yes, yeah. And so you go to this place and you feel that pain, but then the pain never stops. It never goes away. And then I forget the name of the people who have just like gone crazy from the amount of pain that they're in. They have like a mantra. They're called like the
Hoed or something.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So you don't want to become one of those. So you have to be very careful about not getting injured in this place called Elantris. So if you haven't read the book, that's kind of one of the locations in the book. It's the most magical location, but I just wanted to kind of open with that to give people a frame of reference of, that's the part that people will have the most trouble like wrapping their heads around.
Yeah,
if they haven't read the book.
It's like a lost city, lost magic system kind of story where they're trying to figure out what caused the magic system or like the magic to go away and how they can get it back. So that's basically like that's like the general thing across the whole book that they're trying to, at least Raiden, that's what Raiden's trying to do the whole book essentially.
Yeah, he's like trying to like redeem the city because it was once glorious and now it's this dead waste zone. Because when you catch the Teod, and that's what makes your skin turn dark, it used to be a blessing. When the magic worked, your skin actually turned silver and you had magical powers. So who doesn't want that? But now the city has fallen into disrepair, and Raiden's trying to restore it and redeem it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So did you enjoy the book in general? What are your general thoughts?
Yeah. Brandon Sanderson is such a world builder. Yeah, I just so enjoyed walking with all of these characters, and then like I couldn't figure out Elantris right away, and that's where Raiden. He's like a prince, and he catches the Teod, and he's put in Elantris, and then he kind of starts taking control of. There's like gangs and stuff in there, and he just leads through like being the perfect person, like the paragon of like moral choice and he doesn't lean on his heritage at all. He's not like, I'm the king's son, listen to me. He's just like, people will follow me because I'm good. Like they know that I'm for them and not like for myself.
Yeah.
So I just love the story. I think it's great.
Yeah, awesome.
What did you think, Mr. Verum?
I also really enjoyed this book. I know, like watching other booktuber people or watching other people talk about Brandon's books and like people doing like tier lists and stuff where they rank all of Brandon's Cosmere books. Elantris is usually, you know, kind of like in a C tier. Like they don't think it's some of his best work. But I don't know. I really did enjoy this story and just I don't know, I think it was just all the characters are really interesting, and that's basically what this book is really focused on, is just the characters and their story and what their thought process is and why, like their motivations for doing what they're doing, and just really hearing about their inner monologue and like hearing about like how they approach situations and how they think about situations and how they solve problems. And it is definitely a slow burn. Like there's not a lot of action. Like we talked about in our previous episodes on Warbreaker about how there's not a ton of action in Warbreaker until the very end. And this is kind of like the same deal where there's not a ton of really super engaging action until the very end. But like when the action comes, like it really, really hits hard. And I think the ending was really, really good. And even Brandon's first published book kind of has like this, he has the trademark like things, it's called Sanderlanche, where like the last, 100 pages or so is like just like a torrential downpour of like insane stuff that's
action
happening.
And I like totally blown away by these like monks who have been deformed by this like horrific painful process, and they're like built to kill and obey orders and attacking the city. It's just crazy.
So I thought it was really good. And at the end I have the 10th anniversary edition on here, and in that Brandon has a postscript that he wrote. I don't know if the audiobook has that in there or not, but
yes, it did.
It did. Okay.
I'm wondering what you're going to talk about.
But his postscript had this really good quote in there about like what really the book is all about, and it says, "It was the contemplative book about a man trying to rebuild society among wretches, a woman who refuses to be defined by the role society heaps upon her, and a priest having a crisis of faith." And I think that's really the heart of this book, is just those
such a good summary.
Yeah, those three stories.
Well, it comes from him. It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote the book, so he would know, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that was a really good nugget, a really good quote, just to kind of like summarize what the book is really about. And it's not necessarily about the story. It's about how the characters react to what's happening around them, and how they all like rise above their situation to pursue virtue and pursue like living rightly, so I thought it was great.
It's fun to because it's not the stereotypical like action, like you were telling me about Stormlight Archive and like how much more action there is in that, but still, like, this is an amazing world that Brandon built here. And
I mean, Stormlight books aren't like all action. They're so much longer though, so that there's more action, but as a percentage of the book, it's probably still a small percentage, although some books have more action than others, but we'll get there eventually.
Yep, all things in time.
Yes. All right, let's jump into, because we're doing characters this episode. Okay. So we're just going to we'll start with Raiden. And basically, Raiden there's a kingdom, it's called Arlon, something like that. And Raiden is the Prince of Arlon. His father is the king. And I think it's the prologue of the book. We follow Raiden as he gets the Teod, the curse of Elantris, as it were. So he wakes up. The Teod. The Teod. So he gets this blotchy skin, his hair starts to kind of fall out, and that's what Gabe was talking about earlier in the cold open, where he's basically just taken, all of his possessions are burned, and then he's just cast into the city of Elantris, and he's just there to fend for himself, to live or die, or once you get cast into Elantris, the people outside don't really care what happens to you. So he's just been cast in there.
And it's kind of like a feudal society. There's like a few like gangs in Elantris, and it's just kind of like, if you don't do what you're told, we're gonna beat you up. And that's the ultimate threat, because you don't stop feeling when you get beat up. Like if you got punched in the stomach, oh man, that hurts. And to never recover from that. I mean, I'm not saying that I've been punched in the stomach in a real fight or anything, but I'm just saying, like, as an example.
But like whenever Raiden goes in, he meets this guy named Galadon, and he asks him to like take him and help him, basically like help him to learn about Elantris and what's going on, and kind of get his bearings. And they're running away from this other gang that's trying to like take Raiden's food, because whenever you enter Elantris, they give you like a little basket of food or something to take with you. But these gangs wait for people to come in, and then they steal the food from them. So they're running away from this gang, and Raiden, he hits his toe on like a rock or something. And like even at the end of the book, or like towards the end of the book, he's still like, oh yeah, my toe still hurts. So like,
oh no, like the description at the end was so good. It was like he didn't even feel his feet anymore. It was just like balls of agony on the ends of like his legs. Like he could no longer feel his feet. I was just like, oh, that sounds so terrible.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Elantris is like there's the physical aspect of like your pain doesn't go away, your heart stops beating, but you don't die. You can't eat. You can eat food, but it doesn't satisfy your hunger. But you'll be hungry forever, but you'll still never die. But there's also like the mental aspect of Elantris, where like you have to deal with any pains that you get, and so like you basically just have to like train your brain to like ignore the pain in a way. But of course, at some point there's too much pain and you can't handle it anymore, and then that you like go insane.
Tyler, I think. Sorry, I was getting excited to talk because I am totally on board with what you're saying, and that also leads to why, Raoden, this prince, ends up leading the people, and it's kind of like, I feel very Christian. Like once people have found their purpose, he started recruiting people and putting them to work, saying, "You're going to clean the slime off the, you're
going to clean the floors."
Yep. And he had the one guy, the jeweler that came to Elantris, becomes a shoemaker, because having comfortable shoes and not getting blisters is important.
Or stubbing your toe.
And I almost equate that to like finding your purpose like with God. Because once you like find that, he's saying like the pain is melting away, even though they're not healing, but because they are like moving towards something and not just like sitting in the pain that they have.
Or even like in ministry, like if you're trying to recruit volunteers to do something in ministry, like you have to give them like a unified purpose, like a mission, a goal, or like what we're working for, or why we're doing what we're doing. And if you don't have that, then like there's not really like a reason to volunteer. You know what I mean? It's like you're doing it for nothing essentially. But if you're all together, you're all striving towards something and some kind of goal together as a body of Christ, then it's like you can go through adversity and still stay unified on your goal and your mission. So yeah, I think that was a good parallel, and I liked that leadership quality about him, because every person he met, he was like, "Oh, I've been waiting for somebody exactly like you. I've been looking for somebody just like you with your skills."
Hey, isn't that what God would say to each one of us?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I have been waiting for you. It's like to meet God. God's like, I've been waiting right here for you to come and say hello. Yeah. And I know exactly what I want to do with you.
Yeah, exactly. Like he gave us all of these skills and abilities, and he's waiting for us to just come to him and say, "Oh yeah, you can use my gifts, right?" And God is like, yes, of course I can use your gifts, and we're gonna be all in this mission together. We're gonna pursue something important.
Back to the jeweler, I'm thinking exactly like you're thinking. Like, he's given this skill set to be, he can make anything with his hands. And he wants to make the luxury item something, jewelry is something that you have like when you live in luxury, right? Or like fancy stuff. And then it goes to making something very practical, like a shoe. And I think that just speaks to like how when it does, like, what you do it for God. It doesn't matter if you're making the diamonds and the jewelry or if you're making the shoes. Like, no matter where you are in life, you just do it for God and you get like excited about it and you do it well.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the passage, but there's a passage in the New Testament, I think it's Paul, where he's talking about spiritual gifts or something, like do everything for the glory of God, no matter what your calling is. It's all for the glory of God. So whether you're doing, if you're a superstar athlete, if you're a musician, if you're a janitor, if you're, a librarian, like, whatever, put your thing in the box, and all of those things are for the glory of God and to benefit other people around you. So
I totally identify with that because I lived that out for 2 years. I worked for a person who just challenged me in ways that I never, like, I'm so used to just working the way that I work, and this was a very like stringent sort of like need to have every I dotted, every T crossed sort of thing, or you're in big trouble. And I've never had that level of scrutiny before, and then I just turned to the Bible in that situation and like, this is for God, and I'm going to try and do it the way that my boss is asking me to do it, because that's what God wants me to do. He wants me to grow and to try and be like that. And that was tough.
Yep.
I even told him one time, I was like, I cursed your name, but I did it anyway. And he laughed at me, which was funny. But yeah, so it is not easy to follow God. I mean, that was something that I tried very hard to do, was to make my boss happy, and I still don't think I got it right.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Anything else? I'm trying to think about different things Raiden did. Yeah, I think he's not like using his position of authority to get recruits. He's using his charisma and his like his wisdom and his just good engagement.
Wisdom is
with
a good
people.
word.
Yeah. So like Raiden's always kind of like, he's always looking ahead. He's never content with the way things are. He's always trying to improve things and make people better, make people like see how he sees the world and have them have a vision as well. So it's not that he just has a vision, that he inspires other people to also have vision as well. And I think that's a really good sign of a leader, where you can have other people buy into your mission and to like get them to see something that maybe they couldn't see before.
Yeah, and to be able to do that with people and to inspire them, like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Raiden definitely. So also in the 10th anniversary, there's a section about the Mad Prince.
Yes.
Did you read that section?
I did not, unfortunately, because
I'll give you a quick summary. So, basically, this is a character that wrote out of the final edition. So he goes through like Brandon Sanderson did like 10 different drafts, and he said, I'm usually a one drafter, and he said this one was like 10, and so it was Raoden's brother, and the main reason Brandon wanted to write him into the world was to explain how Raoden became who he was. His brother was always like tormenting him, and Raoden had to figure out clever ways to like use the rules of his brother's game, the Mad Prince, and like use the rules that he created against him, and that's how he became this like resilient person who's able to deal with difficult situations, and like you said, the wisdom of what to do in a given situation.
Yep.
So that was an interesting thing that was included. It's always fun to like peek behind the curtain,
Yeah.
And he said he tied up like the loose ends with characters he had already created. He thought it was too much to introduce this person this late in the game.
Yeah. I did read the little part in the beginning, the explanation, but I didn't read all of the different stuff within. Transparency. I finished this book last night at like 9:30, so I was like, I don't have time to read that section, unfortunately, but yeah. All right. Do you have any other thoughts on just Raiden, or do you want to move on to the next character?
I think we just a little bit more context, just for Raiden. He is, what's the word we want to use? Promised to Sarene in a marriage contract.
Oh yes. He's betrothed.
Betrothed. Okay. And then Raiden contracts or gets the Teod, and then he's moved into Elantris, but he's basically in line to be the king of the country or whatever.
Yep.
So just I wanted to throw that in for context, and
yes.
Should we go for the direct spoiler about the magical system?
Yeah, with Raiden.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, go for it.
He's going to be like the granddaddy of the magic system, because
Yep.
he figures out that the magic is tied to the land. And so the way that they draw the characters that summon the magic through the door, they like
Aeon
write
door.
these. Yeah, the Aeon door.
Yep.
So they write characters in the air and it glows. And because the physical geography of the land has changed, so the alphabet that they use and all the characters that they use had to adapt as well. And that's why the magic system broke 10 years before. And now he starts doing like crazy magic at the end. He like transports himself like...
Yep.
Like, what was the metric? Like 100
it was like
million
one
steps.
Yeah, it was like 1 million something. But then he had to like cut it in half, I think, because the little kid who told him the number, it was like half his stride.
Length.
Yeah, something.
And they had to rely on the Seon to like give the exact direction. And they're kind of like a supernatural like helper creature. So like you could trust it to be right. It just knows the actual truth about where that location is. Yeah. So, and so like if there are more Elantris books, like he's going to be doing the craziest stuff because he's the one who's done the research. He's figured out like if you want to heal somebody, you have to tell the magic to heal like a specific part to like focus it. And someone dies that way, and Raoden like, feels bad because he's like, it was on me. He's like taking responsibility. Like I should have known how to like direct the magic into the broken parts of this man's body to save him.
Yep.
And that's just the man that Raoden is. He like takes the responsibility. Like I should have known, like I could have done better. And he grows. He stayed up late and started studying that stuff so that if he was ever in that situation again.
Yep.
And again, that just speaks to who he is as a man and as a person.
And the only way he was able to do that and have that much study was because he was able to build like a new civilization within Elantris that could like run and sustain itself on its own. So like he put other people in charge of all the things that he used to do, and he had all this free time now because he basically created a self-sustaining society. And so now he had the time to go and study and try to figure out what happened with the magic and why it broke. But actually, clarification, it was Sarene who mentioned to him that in her schooling, like, oh, you just draw these three lines because it matches up with the mountain or the coastline and the river or something like that, and then the dot in the middle is the city of Elantris. So it was actually
that we would have heard so many emails about.
Yeah, you got it wrong.
Like you should have done
that. So Sarene was actually the one who mentioned that, but she didn't link it. But her mentioning that to Raiden was what allowed him to get those two things together properly. So
yep. That is so. I love how you kind of like weave these these storylines together in this book. And because they were in each other's lives, that's why he made the connection.
Yep. So speaking of Sarene, let's move on to her. So she is a princess of another country across the sea to the north, in a land called Teod. Is that how you pronounce it? Teod?
Man,
and
this is the part where I want to go back in time and tell myself to make a recording of all of the correct enunciations, especially because I have the book. I'm like Raiden. Like, I need to do better for the listeners. Okay. Sorry, continue.
But yeah, so she is the princess of Teod, and she is sent south into Arlon because she's betrothed to Raiden. But before she gets there, Raiden is of course sent into Elantris, as we talked about earlier. And so now she is just kind of in Arlon, and she doesn't really know what to do with herself. The problem is there was an alliance that was part of this marriage contract, and technically speaking, the contract is still valid, even though, because once the contract was made, they were technically already married. They just hadn't had the ceremony, I guess, yet. So the marriage is still valid, which means the alliance between Arlon and Teod is still sound. So instead of returning to Teod because Raiden is no longer there, she decides to stay in Arlon to keep the alliance and to become part of the court of Arlon and just be a part of that society now. So she's basically doing it for her country to keep them safe, basically from some other outsiders. A nation called Fjorden, which we'll talk about with the next character. But yeah, what do you think of Sarene? I thought she's pretty witty. Sarene. She's pretty fast with her mind. She's politically savvy.
She's like the so Hrathen and Delof are our
yep.
They're like the people coming into the city trying to like cause civil upheaval and like kind of an overturn in government. And she is like their she like thwarts them. Like that's her plan, is to like. And so, she's very quick on her feet. And she has like this whole like identity crisis almost, with like, she feels like homely, and she's being married off, and she is in love with a prince who is now dead. In quotation marks, I'm doing that with my fingers. So she had like all this expectation about what it was going to be like to connect with someone that she intellectually like looked up to, because she doesn't have anyone in her life that she actually looks up to intellectually. So that's Raiden. And then he's all of a sudden like out of the equation, and they had fallen in love through like letters. They both like were inspired by the other person, which
they can communicate through their seance.
Yeah, they're Seons. Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's sort of like if you've seen Star Wars, like what do they call those? Where they do the communications.
Holograms?
Yeah, the holograms. It's basically like a fantasy version of holograms, where their like face is projected by the Seon.
Yeah. So there's a description that they're kind of like a ball, and they like have
like,
light,
like
shining
a ball
out.
of light, essentially. Yep. But they're sentient.
Yep, and they have their own like personality, and they like Sarene's Seon is like a big, I don't know if foil is the correct word, like you get to hear a lot of her thought process by her talking to her Seon.
Yep.
So that was an interesting dynamic. And and then it's interesting plot twist where she gets thrown into Elantris because now I'm not sure how she gets the quote unquote Teod. Is it like Hrathen?
It was, remember he ordered that poison from that one monk that he knew from a long time ago.
Yeah, who was kind of like the hippie, like, hey man, what's up?
Can you? I need a. He's like, I need a poison that does this, this, and this. Can you make it? And he's like, oh yeah, I can do that. So like, he gets all of his mushrooms and his like roots, and he puts them all in a big pot, and he stirs it all around.
Yep. He's an apothecary guy.
Yep. So yeah, he gets that poison, and then he uses one on himself. Raythen does, to get into Elantris to make it seem like he gets healed. And then he uses the other one, the one that he had left, because I think some of them got destroyed. He uses the last one he has on Sarene too. Yeah. Which that was I don't know, that felt like a little too convenient to me in the plot. It was like, oh, I just happened to the symptoms happen to just start showing as soon as she gets up to the altar or whatever for her marriage. It was like, I mean, come on. I guess it's dramatic, but
yeah, it wasn't like, I felt like Raoden was very like, because he was in his room when he found out and when he saw it like on himself. Yes. And then
which that's like, the normal way. The normal way would happen is it would happen overnight and you woke up with it. But hers, it happened in the middle of the day, randomly, which is a dead giveaway that it wasn't a legitimate sickness that she was getting. It was a fake. So, but I guess I don't know. Nobody thought about it that hard because they're like, oh no, the Teod, get out. So. Even though it's like not contagious, so like I don't know why they're so afraid, but oh well.
Yeah, I guess it's different, and different things are bad. Different things are bad.
That's true.
Totally joking. So yeah, she's a good character, and she also has her uncle there.
Kin.
And yeah, I'm totally avoiding saying the names right now, so I just have to commit.
Kiin, however you say it.
Keen?
That's the right way, however you say it.
It's not, but so he is the uncle, and he's living in this country, and he has his 3 kids, and they kind of like shows Sarene around, and they kind of give her insight into what's going on in the city. And I thought that was just relevant to bring up so the listeners would know more about the characters in the
she's kind of she like finds herself in this because she's coming to a country in crisis, essentially, because their leadership is really disjointed. The king is unstable. There's this power from the east that's coming to try and invade and convert everybody to a new religion, which is Fjorden. And and she's trying to like get somebody better on the throne. So she finds herself in this group of dukes and barons and people of that kind of political level who have political power to make things happen, and they're trying to like strategize about how they can get the king off the throne, Iadon, Raoden's father, because he's kind of like an unstable person, and they have this like weird political structure where your power is basically tied to the amount of money you make. So the only reason that Iadon is king is because he makes the most money from everybody compared to everybody else. So they're basically trying to figure out ways to like have him lose money so they can put somebody else on the throne, but they also need to be careful because some of the other dukes and stuff maybe would be worse than him, so they can't put somebody else that's worse than Iadon back in the throne, so they need to put a good person. And then there's just a ton of like political intrigue, and there's the stuff with Hrathen and the conversion, and he wants to convert the whole country to this new religion. There's just a lot of like political and religious conniving and scheming going on in Sarene's storyline.
Yeah, I think her and Hrathen, like he ends up falling in love with her, which was very interesting.
That was interesting. at the very
But
end.
I could also
like
see it happening at the
his
same
dying
time.
breath. Spoiler: Hrathen dies.
He viewed her as an equal, which is
really
saying
did.
something. Because he went to another another country, and like basically corrupted it and took it down.
Yep.
And that's no mean feat. That's something amazing. Like, you have to be very talented and skilled. And for Sarene to like match wits with him and then to best him, like, I could see that being like, wow, this person is impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like that about Sarene. She was like I think in one of my little post-its that I wrote in my notes, talked about like how she was like a model for like apologetics, like how to like defense of the faith, like poking holes in other people's arguments about their specific faiths and how they think about things. And she was like,
oh my gosh,
she just like
sorry,
picks them apart, and he's like, what? I did not expect anything like this to happen. And he was like really caught off guard by somebody who actually had knowledge of his religion and was able to show basically like the flaws in his religion that most people, if you're just listening to a sermon, like they're not going to pick up on. But she was smart enough to be able to like see the distinctions in the faiths and what was wrong about his faith. So yeah, I think it was really good.
Yeah,
really good
and she like, she was like learned, and she read in a book like, this is the argument you need to make when you hear this argument from Raythen, basically.
Yep.
But I want to go back to something real quick. I doing vacation Bible school with a bunch of like elementary age kids, and we're learning about the parable of the sower and how God made everything for us. Yep. And if you think about it, like, every tree on the planet was made for us to enjoy. Every blade of grass, every flower, every biome that we visit. There's just like, that's all made for us. And it devolved into this kid saying, well, God didn't make Fortnite. And so my response to that is, yes, he did. Like, we are given everything on the planet to like, and you know what humans did? They made Fortnite. And that was because of, think about the computers that are being used, like the technology that the human minds have created to get to the point where we can have games like Fortnite. And we couldn't make the computers without the natural elements in the earth. And those things were taken by humans, and we're creating something so far from that mineral in the earth to this computer that can output video files and everything. And it's all to God's glory. And I was trying to explain that to him in like 2 seconds. Like, while we were singing a song, he was not dancing, and he was not, God didn't make Fortnite. And I was like, come on, man. It's such a hilarious story. I just had to say it.
That's funny. Yeah. So I think one thing I thought was odd that happened in Sarene's storyline was like how easily she was able to get into this like boys club with all of the dukes and like basically become part of the inner circle. And I don't know, it just like, it was weird to me because this is obviously like a secret group because they don't want the king to like know that they're trying to overthrow him, and to just let some princess just like walk in and like within a week she's like in this secret group with them and trying to plot to like overthrow a government. I don't know. It was thought that was a little odd, but maybe it should have taken longer.
There were a few moments in the book where I was like, it's a little too convenient. The argument was, though, in the book was she was about to be our queen.
Yes, true.
Like, that was the argument. Like, we need to treat this person with respect.
Yep.
And, maybe maybe Raiden spoke highly of her, and, they know the caliber of person he is.
Yep.
But yeah, there was a little whiff of, this is a little convenient here. But that's okay.
Yeah, I think her character was just really well done in showing like how she didn't like fit in basically any other situation she was in throughout life. And like, even when she goes to Arlon, she's with like that group of women, and she tries to teach them about like how to fence and stuff like that. And like she's still kind of like, I think she says at one point, like, they'll respect me, but I'll never be one of them. Like, she'll never be part of like the crew, part of the team, seen as like an equal. There's always like some kind of
she'll always be an other.
Yeah, there'll be like a barrier between her and the other people. And I don't know, yeah, I think it was just interesting to like watch her kind of go through that process, because that's like been her reality her whole life essentially. And like she was putting all of her eggs in like the Raoden basket, and I was like, oh, finally she's gonna be able to get some good things in her life. But like no, just like the rug swept out from under her. Too bad, so sad, kind of a deal. So,
Dream crusher.
Yeah, essentially. So yeah, but like she's such a strong character that she's able to just take that in stride and like make the best of whatever situation she's in. And yeah, I just thought it was just really well done. Like, she does have a lot of flaws as a character, but she's just able to like use all of the gifts that she's been given to like push through and make the best out of a bad situation.
Yeah, I think that's like, you know, God calls us to use our spiritual gifts to like the fruit of the spirit. That's when you like make things thrive and make things grow. And she was good at pouring into things to make things thrive and to make things grow.
Yeah, for sure.
And then like the marriage between Raiden and Sarene, like what a good pair. You know, he's like, you know, a very good man and she's a very good woman. And then like together they're like synergizing and doing more goodness.
Yep. Yeah, like Raoden's wisdom and political knowledge and Sarene's political savvy as well. Like, they're gonna make a very good like king and queen duo to like.
Let's just call them a power couple. They're gonna be a power couple.
Yeah, they are certainly a power couple.
Because he literally can wield magic.
Yeah, so he's like literally the powerful, like magical person. I kind of thought that like eventually, I kind of thought that maybe she would actually become an Elantrian, and then they would together meet an Elantris and then just like discover it together and then come out and save the day. But it kind of went in like a little bit of a different way. But yeah,
a different way.
Not a bad way. Just it was just different. Brandon had other plans.
That's right.
All right, that's enough about Sarene. Let's move on to Hrathen and his friend Dilaf. His Arteth. So he thinks is his Arteth, but yeah, what did you think of Hrathen?
Oh, Hrathen is such a character in his bright red armor, like marching through the street. And then I love the scene when he gets the Teod, quote unquote, and he's in the city and he's showing how devout he is. You know, it's complete, you know, shenanigans. It's a charade because he doesn't have it, and he's praying for healing.
He like prays for 3 days straight.
And then the Elantrians like attack him from the other gang, and he just like beats the crap out of them. Yeah, that was a pretty awesome scene. I was just like, was a cool scene. That's cool.
Which if he did actually have the Teod, he would have like massive hand pain, and he'd like never be able to use that hand again because he punched them so hard. But yeah.
Yeah, and I love how he's like physically fit and like he's ready to like take care of himself.
Yeah. He's like a warrior monk. He's like a warrior for the faith, like a paladin. That's if you play D&D, he's like a paladin. He's like a holy warrior who he has a righteous fury. And
So one of his secrets is that so they all serve Jedith. That's like their god's name, and they have the hierarchy where there's like one person who communicates with Jedith, who is God. In their eyes, God is Jedith, and then there's one like prophet. So anything that guy writes is considered scripture, and it's from God, but he is the only one connected directly to him. Yep. And then they have this servant system where you serve one above your station and you serve that person wholly because it's all for the greater good of Jedith. And so he is like third from the top. He is not at the bottom of the ranks, you know, because he's toppled a whole nation. He's good at what he does. And so he's here to topple this new nation for Jedith. And he has a direct, basically a message from God saying, you must do this, even though it's written out, you know, by the prophet connected to God. And so I think that's a very interesting hierarchy. And just his internal monologue about how to like dominate the minds of people. And when he had that back and forth with Sarene when they meet in the street and he's like talking and she starts questioning him and he fumbles and he drops the ball. You know, it's interesting to hear his interior monologue. And so he's kind of like the more stoic character. And then you have Delof, who is the fiery, angry
he's
monk.
like the religious zealot.
Yeah. And then when Hrathen comes to town, he's like, he commands Delof to like join him and serve him, even though it's kind of a reckless move because Delof is kind of reckless. Oh, and I loved hearing the way Brandon Sanderson described like the different preaching styles between Hrathen and Delof. How he was like fiery and passionate, and he talked about his eyes like darting and moving around while he was speaking, and how he really like spoke to like the souls of people. And and Hrathen was all about like speaking the truth to people.
Very logical, like going through like the religious processes and taking people through like a process through the sermon essentially.
But both of them still having deep faith and living it out in like in their own communication styles. And so Delof is, so there's different temples, I think, that serve Jedith, and one of these places you can go to is like a monastery and become these like twisted monks. I
think it's
Decor. And so both of them have been through the process. So Delof is full like Decor, and that means he's like super strong and basically the ultimate fighter.
And, we don't find this out though until the very end of the book.
Oh yeah, it's like right at the end there.
But Hrathen,
we just proceed with everything is revealed.
Raythen is like he didn't go. He started at Decor, but he left like halfway through or whatever because
through the transformation process to be the twisted monk.
He didn't want to do it, so he left and he went to a different monastery. So he didn't actually like complete it, but he knows like about that place because he was there at one point in his life.
And Delof was there too, like 50 years before, and he was the one that like tortured him essentially. And he said like, you commanded someone to kill themselves for a distance you could have walked in like a short amount of time. And he's like, and it turns out that Delof is actually level Gregdet or something, which is the number 2 position, you know, so one above Hrathen. And so actually he's supposed to be
subservient to Delof.
Yeah, exactly. And he's been acting and Delof is leading all of these twisted monks on an attack on the city because they're going to purge the city. So I mean, that is just Brandon Sanderson, just like that's the avalanche you were talking about earlier.
I thought it was interesting with that Delof reveal where he's like this ultra powerful monk person, where like at the end of the story he's fighting Raiden, and Delof is able to basically like counteract the magic of Raiden and
negate the door.
I mean, like only Delof is able to do that, and his other monks are not able to do that. And that's right. I think he said something about like Raythen said that he had to like have 50 other monks like sacrifice themselves, like basically die in order for him to like gain this power. So he had to like basically kill 50 of his other fellow monks to like absorb. It's like a blood sacrifice almost. Like they die so he can absorb like their power in some way. Yeah, I just thought that's pretty dark. So Brandon's not afraid to like write some dark stuff into his books. But yeah, I think that's
what makes it interesting, right?
Yeah, for sure. I love those like really interesting little reveals about how the magic system works.
That's why he's a good world builder, man, because you're just like, yeah, it's very interesting. Like,
yep.
I mean, he is, I just think about like how much love he pours into this book, to create this world for you. Because he thinks about these little things that like, he makes sure that it's grounded in some sense. Like it just doesn't come out in the book, it comes out of nowhere, but like when you look at it, he's built it into the story throughout. Like there's little breadcrumbs here and there.
Yes.
Like they're pretty small breadcrumbs, but just that world building. And then we go back to God building our world. Every corner, like every pocket of the earth is here for us to like explore and enjoy. So much love from God.
Yep. One thing I enjoyed seeing with Raythen is like his like in that quote that I read at the beginning about how like what the book was all about, that Brandon quote. Hrathen's part is a priest having a crisis of faith. So I think I really enjoyed just seeing him like come up against difficulty after difficulty and how he tackles that with his faith. So he has the difficulty with Sarene, like poking holes in his arguments and his sermons that he's preaching. And then he has the difficulty with Delof, where he like questions his own faith. Like, why am I not like a zealous person? Like, why am I like a logical person and not like, why don't I have the emotion of Delof, essentially is what he's questioning. And so he's wondering like, why do I not have enough faith, or if I had more faith, would I be like that? Stuff like that. And then he has like the final crisis where he realizes Delof wants to do abhorrent things in the name of his faith, and Hrathen is like, nah, I can't go that far. Like, you've twisted the words of our God, essentially. And I love there was like a quote towards the very end where he said something like, I don't have a problem with God, I have a problem with the Wern or whatever, which is the guy like directly below God, like the Pope, essentially. It's like I love that, where he recognizes like the difference between trusting in God and trusting in man. So like he was getting all this stuff from like the human leader and not actually from God, and he's now questioning like, I can't really trust what the human leaders are telling me, because there's a conflict here between what I believe about God and what the people in charge are saying and telling me to do that I know to be wrong. So yeah, I thought that was like a really good like crisis of faith, and we can certainly have parallels to that in like various religions throughout history and in Christianity, like people trusting in the Pope and stuff like that, and Catholicism, and trusting in man instead of actually trusting in who is the Messiah, Jesus. So Anna, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm just agreeing with you like completely. Like, I don't know about you, but I've looked at people, I'm like, when they're in worship and they have their hands up in the air, like in the rows and stuff. And
like, why don't I do that?
Yeah.
I'm the chosen person.
And yeah, I mean, those are things that Christians struggle with. Like, so I think that, I like that Brandon builds, the religious element into his fiction, because it gives us a great dialogue to talk about, because it's a fictional place, but we all struggle with those same things. And like, we think that we look at people and we say, why can't I be like that? And have you heard the quote, comparison is the thief of joy? Yep. And Jenna and I believe that full-heartedly, that when we start looking sideways and not looking at God, that it just robs it just robs the goodness that God has for us. Like, we need to be focused on what we're doing for God and not what people over here are doing. Everyone's on their own like boat and ship, and they're moving
Yep.
towards something, and we always want it to be moving
Yep.
towards God and not looking laterally.
Yeah, I mean, comparison at the end of the day is the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet. That's basically what it is you're saying, why don't I have what that person has, or why is my personality not like this other person? If I was like them, I'd be a better person, or I'd be a better employee, a better husband, or whatever it is, fill in your blank. And yeah, you just lose the joy of life because you're constantly saying, I never have enough, or I never am enough. But the great thing about the gospel is, like, you're never going to be enough, and that's okay. Jesus was enough for you. So that's like the hope and the message of the gospel, where it's like we can't do it on our own, so Jesus did it for us. And so that's where we get our identity and where our joy comes from.
Yeah. And we're just so, like, called to take care of the things that we're involved with. Like, I think even thinking of it as simply as that, like, if I'm involved in something, like, I am there to help push its agenda forward. And even if I have to, like, sacrifice some time and some effort, like, you want to do it well and invest in other people's goals too. Because that's how we thrive together, is when we're being Christians, we're living in community and we are giving ourselves to other people so that we can see the fruit of the Spirit on their plate and on your neighbor's plate. Because we're investing time and value making those relationships valuable. Yeah,
for sure. And it's like, why do we compare ourselves instead of comparing ourselves to other people? We should be joyful that those people have those gifts given to them. Like, God gave them those gifts, and he gave you other gifts. And it's not that one person has better gifts than the other person. It's just your gifts are different in a way. And we should all, that's part of like the body of Christ, where we all have different and unique gifts, and we have things that were only given to us. And the person that you might be envying for whatever they have, they might be doing the same thing back to you. They might be saying, why am I not like Tyler? I wish I was like him. And then I'm saying, why am I not like Gabe?
I say that sometimes. I kind of wish I was like you.
We're both comparing ourselves to each other, where instead we should be saying, Gabe is awesome, and Gabe's saying Tyler's awesome, and we're both just in the presence of the Lord, So it's
using the gifts and like making, like, we're making something new here together, and it's fun, and we're both into it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
Back to Raythen.
Back to Raythen. We are like
the kings of side quests right now.
Yeah, kings of side quests. I don't know. Do you have any other little plot things with Raythen that you enjoyed, or? I think we've pretty much hit a lot of the big ones with his crisis of faith, and him realizing he wants to follow God, not man, essentially, is what it comes down to. And he realizes that he's been following man this whole time.
I just thought, I mean, the Hrathen storyline was so fun to follow. It was good.
I found myself really enjoying the philosophical discussions between him and Delof, because Delof is like, we're gonna like burn down the system, we're gonna kill everybody and all this stuff, and Hrathen's like, no, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna do this like really logically. This is our goal. We're gonna do this thing because of X, Y, and Z, and we're not just gonna run out here and like do whatever because we're passionate about our thing. And
in education, in education we call that systems thinking. So knowing how to drive like the different parts of the system. Like when you try and adjust something, you can't just adjust the thing. You have to find the gears that are turning, like in a business. Like I've worked in schools my whole life. So the way the curriculum is going to affect the teachers, and then that also affects the administrators on how they're going to report on this change of curriculum. And then like new standards come in and you have to adjust for that. Like how do you scaffold the teachers' understanding of that and build them up so that they can deliver? And Hrathen understands that. He understands the different systems that exist and how to manipulate them to get his result. And Deloff just has passion.
Yeah. He's like an engineer. He's like pulling all the little levers, like I'm going to do this thing and then this is going to have this effect over here. And then once that happens, then I can pull this other lever and then this other thing's going to happen because of what I did before. And it's like this.
And he's doing like, it with people, which is impressive.
Yeah. So it's hard. Like he doesn't, because you never know, people might react differently than what you think they would. But yeah, he's very crafty in how he knows how people will respond to certain things that he does, like with his sermons, and then he was also able to like use, like play Deloff, like him and like they're both like different types of sermon styles. Like he was able to, like Deloff was able to start and like get them all fired up, and then Raythen was able to come in and be like, okay, now you're all fired up. Now here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. And he's very logical about it. And he's able to give them like steps, like, okay, now that you're excited about this faith thing, here's our next steps and our logical thing that we're going to do to kind of like convert the country essentially. So
yeah, it takes so much like I love reading how Brandon Sanderson would do this, like if he was in this situation, because this is basically his game plan if he's ever a Hrathen in some imaginary planet.
Well, he's a Mormon, if you didn't know. So
oh, I did not know.
Yeah, so he's going to convert.
Hey, I like some Mormons. I like Stephen Covey. He's my favorite Mormon.
Yeah.
I've learned so much from Stephen Covey. But yeah, so I thought story arc is great with Hrathen.
Awesome. All right, I think we're getting a little high on time here, so I think we'll just call it right there with the characters. I don't know, do you have any
we talked about a lot.
We did. Do you have any just last thoughts about like all of the characters together? And you don't really get them all together until the very end, because they're all kind of in their own separate little places. All the threads come together in the end. So, I don't know. I think it was just cool to kind of see Raythen come in at the end and be the one who's saving our other two main characters whenever he was against them for basically the whole book. Like he was against Elantris, aka Raoden, and he was against Sarene and trying to keep the religion from converting, or the country from converting to the other religion. And then he's the one who actually comes back and saves them at the very end, and without him they probably would have died. So I think it's interesting, like their enemy for the entire book now becomes their savior in a way, which was a good way to end, I think.
Twisty.
Because like you're rooting for Hrathen to like I enjoy Hrathen. It's like you think he's a great character, but he's like on the wrong side essentially. Like everything about you is great, but if you were just on our side, it would be like you'd be like the best character ever, right? So
yeah, it
was cool to see him finally come over. It's not that he doesn't convert to another religion, but he sees like the errors in his own religion. He's able to recognize those and realize, I'm actually doing the wrong thing here, even though my gods, or my supposed god, says that it's what I should do. So yeah.
I had a conversation with a pastor today about that very thing. Being with God and discovering the Holy Spirit, it's about an introspective journey. And I love that you brought that up.
Yep.
Because, as I'm developing stuff for Quartermaster, I think I'm going to have one question that's going to kind of center all of my stuff. And the question is, should I? We can do so many things, but the question is, should you? And I think that people have just behavioral patterns that they don't know any other way. They were raised in a family that had certain behavioral patterns. They called them the family of origin. And you take those with you into your individual life and into your marriage. And then if you have kids, into your family. And sometimes we just don't take a step back and look at those things and saying, are these productive? Are these generating the fruit of our spirit, in our lives? And I think that is a journey of introspection. And I'm in my 7th, 8th year of that, with my walk with Christ. And I'm seeing the fruit in my life. I I have a lot of fruit. I am so thankful to God and everything He does. And it's through obedience that I've been trying to walk in His ways and through self-reflection. So I'm just going to piggyback on your idea.
But that whole process, like, it's not an easy process. Like, there's probably some behaviors where you're like, oh, I really like that behavior and I'd like to continue doing it. But you're like, oh, but I really shouldn't, because it's not bringing anything good in my life. It's not
a fruit that bears behavior.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it's not a behavior that bears good fruit.
Yeah, for sure. That reminds me of I didn't read the book, but the movie, what's it called? I can't remember it now. It's where the guy, he was like in a trailer park, and his like grandma helps him get out of the Hillbilly Elegy. That's what it is. Hillbilly Elegy. And it basically just follows him like escaping this pattern of behavior in his family. And it's basically like because his mom's like a drug addict and she can't help him. And his grandma realizes, like, if anyone's going to break the cycle, like, someone just has to like put their foot down and say, no, you're not going to behave like this, because it's going to you're going to end up like every other kid in the same neighborhood, and you're going to always do the same thing over and over. It's just going to be a big cycle, and nothing's ever going to change. And until somebody says, no, we're going to change how we behave, and we're going to do things differently, because that is going to be how we can get out of the cycle and build wealth and, you know, like get out of our poverty area here. And it's painful because you're going to be different the whole way, and you're going to have to like make tough decisions and all these things. But in the end, it's going to bear out good fruit, and it's going to be like a benefit in your life, even though it's hard it's hard when you're going through it and in the beginning. But at the end, you realize how beneficial and how good it was for you.
Yeah, it seems like your walk has kind of walked you in the direction that you want to go. And when I was talking to Pastor Chris about this, she was just mentioning the cyclical nature of it for people in a low socioeconomic status. They don't know how to break out and find, you know, because they're patterns of behaviors that have been drilled in for generations that and it's hard, you know, when the educational system is taxed and stressed. You know, those are the adults that are trying to invest and grow those kids out. You know, it's tough in those situations. So whenever we can invest in other people, and especially the needy, God wants us to take care of the needy and the widows. If there's someone in, you know, your life like that, please go out and give them a hand and try and lift their burden a little bit, lift them up.
Yeah. And I mean, we can apply the same kind of stuff to like combating sin in our own life. Like, a lot of times we like to sin because it feels good or it's enjoyable to us or whatever it is. But
it always does.
That's just our sinful nature. But it's difficult to say no to like those temptations and those things we want to do. But maybe intellectually we know that they're bad, but we just do them anyways because we like it or you know, whatever it is. But the fruit that they produce, well, the lack of fruit they produce is clearly evident, but it's only through like hard work and obedience to God that we can actually produce the fruits of the Spirit. So yeah, I don't know how we got on that topic with whatever we were talking about before, but that's probably a good place to end on some kind of Christian Christian moral
I
there. So yeah, all right. So thanks for watching or listening this episode of the podcast. So the next episode will be part 2 of Elantris discussion. We'll be looking at some of the world stuff, more specific things related to the magic system and the religions, comparing the different religions in this book. We talked a little bit about some of those in this episode, but we'll go more in depth next episode, which will be in 2 weeks, because this is every 2 episodes every month, once every other week. Yes, if you want to learn more about Pages of Light and content that we have, you can head over to our website, pagesoflight.com. You'll find blog posts and YouTube links and links to this podcast, of course. And you can follow us on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Goodreads, Rumble, MeWe, all those things. I'm personally on Parler if you want to follow me there. at I am Tyler Thomas. And yeah, Gabe, where can people follow you again?
The only place I have, neighborhoodnerdservices.com. I think I'm going to make a quarantine quartermaster page and just have it be neighborhoodnerdservices.com/QQ or quarantine quartermaster or something.
There you go.
But that is not built, but I think it will be.
At some point it will be built, yes.
Yep.
So links to all of those things that I just mentioned will be in the description, of course. If you enjoyed this podcast and you got value out of it, make sure you support us. You can leave us a review on your podcast app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're at. You can also share it with your friends on social media or just in person. You say, hey, I found this cool podcast, and let them know. And if they like Brandon Sanderson books, tell a friend if they like Brandon Sanderson, if they like doing Christian themes with all these different types of books. We'll be doing other things besides Brandon Sanderson podcast. It's not just Brandon Sanderson. We'll be doing some other stuff, so stay tuned for that. I don't know, Gabe, you have any other closing thoughts?
Just find one person. Just tell one person to listen to Pages and Light podcast.
Yeah, if everybody tells one person, then we'll double our fan base in one day.
Yep, let's do that.
So, all right, that's a good place to end it. Thanks for listening or watching. Remember to keep reading and to share the gospel with somebody this week, and we will see you guys in the next episode. See ya.